time for another video here on the political Napalm. Today we're going to discuss the fact that Tennessee is just a complete hellhole of politics. If you haven't been aware of what's been going on over the last week or so, two of Tennessee's political members, three of them, came up for a vote for expulsion because they stood with the anti-gun protesters at the Tennessee Capitol after the shooting that had occurred in the Covenant School. We've covered that particular event here on the channel, and then the Friday after that event, students walked out of their school, came down to the courthouse, and protested gun issues. They fought to have some gun legislation passed to protect kids from guns. Because as is typical of the right wing, when something like this happens, the narratives immediately begin to spin out that it's never the gun, it's always the person, it's always the situation. Prior to the footage being released from the actual shooting that took place, there was once again attempted blame for, oh look, it was another unlocked door that caused this. And as we could see from the camera footage of the school, the door was shot out. So being locked or not, it stood no chance. The only thing you could say is that, well, it shouldn't be a glass door. It should be a metal door with a smaller amount of glass in it. The type of glass you have alongside your front door in your house. But I think that is beginning to get just utterly ridiculous to say things like that. Schools have to become an iron box. They have to become a prison in order for kids to go to school. Why continue to say things like arming teachers, armed security guards, lock all the doors, make everything airtight, instead of actually going after the issue, which is gun control, and having proper checks prior to gun ownership, watching for the red flags? To me, it's crazy. There is one thing at the source of all of it. Fix the one thing instead of fixing the 7 things. You could do it without infringement. So, Jones and Pearson and this woman over here, Gloria Johnson, got voted on to be expelled. The vote passed for these two people over here. It did not pass for Gloria Johnson. She very much took the high road, stood with the two people who were expelled. It originally looked very, very ridiculously racist at its core that the two black men were voted out, but Gloria Johnson was not. It seemed to very much wear Tennessee's racism on its sleeve. The counter argument is that these two who were voted out were the ones who were more involved that day. They were the ones on the bullhorn. They were actually more active, whereas Gloria over here was just more passive. She just stood there in solidarity and didn't really say or do anything. And she avoided her expulsion by only 1 or 2 votes. Either way you look at this really seems to be, obviously it's incredibly partisan, but it also seems to be rather racist. You cannot deny the fact that there is a difference between these two and Gloria. You could try to make the case hold water that these two were active, the other was passive, but that seems to be an incredibly nitpicky point on this. But the reason why in Tennessee, as a hellhole of politics, forget about the fact of what happened in the federal government when Josh Hawley was able to raise a fist to the protesters as he walked in that day on January 6th that Shakes McGee, Paul Gossar, could post a cartoon video from Attack on Titan that depicted AOC being killed. The fact that Boebert could be live tweeting everybody's position on January 6th. Marjorie Taylor Greene can make a video saying Joe Biden isn't the president, he's a piece of shit. That she could post a video where she agrees that Nancy Pelosi was a traitor that deserves to be shot. George Santos is the most lying politician we've seen in ages, including with Trump. The thing is, with Santos, everything is condensed all within a few months. So the taffy pull isn't very long on Santos. But I mean, this guy is being investigated by the House Ethics Commission and everything. All of this goes relatively unchecked, other than Marjorie losing some assignments when the Democrats were in control. But these two were expelled for protesting. And then, of course, the right wing wants to sit there and say that the Tennessee protest was an insurrection just like January 6th. They tried to flip the script on this and use an existing script, but there literally is no comparison between the two. They are apples and kumquats at this point. One of them was a closed building, the other was not. One of them featured people coming in through proper doorways. The other one did not. One of them featured breaking down barricades and pushing past cops and getting involved in chemical warfare. The other one did not. One of them included makeshift weapons such as crutches and flagpoles. The other one did not. The Tennessee one did include, and I have to say this, it did include what you could say is a form of kidnapping, when they chased somebody into I believe it was a men's bathroom, and then they would not let the person out. They formed a human barrel of monkeys chain in front of the door, and the cops had to push that line and break the chain to get that person out and then escorted. There have been some people saying that this was, a form of kidnapping or holding against their will. They were out, I think, within about 4 or 5 minutes of going in. There was not a particularly long time. Not a great look. Kind of an understandable one, considering how heated the day was. But admittedly, still not a great look. And it weakens the moral high ground of the Tennessee protest. However, to compare the Tennessee protest with January 6th is utterly ridiculous. And why we say Tennessee is a hellhole of politics directly related to Tennessee and not bringing in the federal government, Justin Jones brings this out. That admitted child molester, domestic abuser, and other Republicans who weren't expelled from the Tennessee House. Let's talk about expulsion. For years, one of your colleagues was an admitted child molester, and he sat in this chamber, and there was no expulsion. And we're going to dig into this a little bit more in just a moment. One member sits in this chamber who was found guilty of domestic violence, no expulsion. We had a former speaker who sits in this chamber, is now under federal investigation, no expulsion. We've had a member still under federal investigation, no expulsion. We had a member pee in another member's chair, no expulsion. As a matter of fact, they're in the leadership of the governor's administration. So once again, what are you saying to us when you put us on trial, but not them? This was a state in which the Ku Klux Klan was founded, and it's now attempting another power grab by silencing the 2 youngest black representatives. This is what this is about. And people down here did say, wait a minute, what's with the peeing? And there hasn't been a real clear answer. Don't know the name, but he was pissed that one of his colleagues didn't vote the right way, so he peed in the guy's chair. Who did the peeing is unclear, but the chair that received it belonged to Rick Tillis. So, what he's referencing here, the situation and who he's referencing, is this person, David Byrd. David Byrd was born in 1957, was an American politician, and was a basketball coach in the state of Tennessee. He was in the 71st District. Byrd spent most of his career as a school administrator and a basketball coach at Wayne County High School. He then was the Wayne County Commissioner. He would challenge Vance Dennis, the state rep for the 71st District. He narrowly defeated Dennis in the primary and went on to win the general election unopposed in a heavy Republican district. The sexual abuse allegations now start 4 years later in 2018, when 3 women came forth and said Byrd sexually abused them when they were underage members of the high school basketball team he coached. Each of the women detailed instances of Byrd touching and kissing them and making unwanted advances as far back as 1988. He did not initially refute the allegations and apologized to one of the women, which seems guilty as hell, but then later issued a statement denying the accusation and questioning the motives of the accusers. This really reminds me of the Hooper case, and I don't think I have the video up on my channel yet. I recorded it. There was a guy by the name of Hooper, I think he was down in Alabama, who was a raging Trumper, and a waitress at a restaurant accused him of cornering her in a back area of the restaurant and kissing her in an unwanted way, obviously. And he initially apologized and sent a letter out about it and was going forth with the case against him, and then abruptly changed and was like, no, it didn't happen, and like checked the footage. It was a very strange case that he admitted it and then said, no, it didn't happen. And the only reason why somebody's trying to say this is because I'm a pro-Trumper. Check my channel to see if that video's up there. If not, I'll make sure to get it up pretty soon. But it's a very, very strange case. Even after questioning the motives of the accusers and denying it, one of the alleged victims has a phone recording of him telling her, I can promise you one thing, I've been so sorry for that. I've lived with it, and you don't know how hard it's been for me. In this conversation, she also brings up the other people that she knew that he'd been abusing, and he tried to say, well, I stopped with them and was just with you, which is no defense whatsoever. I mean, it does not help this guy at all. He then resisted calls to resign from even his own party. He resisted calls to resign from influential Republicans such as the Speaker of the Tennessee House of Reps, Beth Harwell, and he won re-election the same year that these accusations came to light. The calls for resignation haunted him in 2019 and 2020, including an unsuccessful resolution by, look who it is, it's Gloria Johnson, the one white lady who was voted on with Pearson and Justin Jones, and who survived it. Even Gloria Johnson wanted to expel Byrd from the House. In 2019, Byrd promised fellow lawmakers he would not seek re-election in 2020 at the request of Governor Bill Lee. However, he reneged on that promise in April and filed for it. He drew 2 challengers in the August 2020 primary, but he won the re-election. How the governor let this pass, how the people let this pass, is completely ridiculous. These accusations seemingly being largely true, and yet this man is voted in. Whether you believe the allegations or not, he also goes back on the promise saying he wouldn't seek re-election, but then does. And the governor asks him not to run, and he still does. A bit of karma hits him here in 2020, when in June of 2020, Byrd had voted with the Tennessee House resolution that the mainstream media had been sensationalizing COVID-19 in the service of political agendas. In other words, it was, COVID was overblown, it's not that bad. But then, as was often happening in 2020, the loudest Republican anti-COVID voices would wind up getting sick, and in December 2020, Byrd was hospitalized with COVID. He attended a caucus meeting with nearly 70 House Republicans in the chambers on November 24th, a week and a half before he was hospitalized, meaning he was potentially a carrier at that point. He spent 8 months in the hospital, 55 days on a ventilator, and required a liver transplant from all of this. His condition was so grave his family had planned for him to die. After recovering from the disease, he weekly told people to get vaccinated and said, I understand the concerns of those who are hesitant to get the vaccine. To them, I'd say it's real, it's very dangerous, it's a disease that wants to kill us, go get vaccinated. But then in August, 2 months after he had just finally recovered from the liver transplant and everything, he joined all members of the State House Republican caucus, signed a letter to Bill Lee asking him to prohibit mask and vaccine mandates. This guy is an absolute trash lord from start to finish. Between the abuse, the lack of wanting to protect people, coming within inches of death and having such a brush with death, knowing the cause of it, and then coming out and saying, you know what, no, let's not protect the people. Let's let them possibly die. So that's David Byrd of Tennessee. It gets worse with John Rose. In March 2007, 17-year-old high school senior Chelsea Doss, then known as Chelsea Brooke Rose, traveled 4 hours from Eagleville to Gatlinburg, Tennessee to participate in the FFA convention, Future Farmers of America. Among the convention attendees was her future husband, then vice chairman of the board of the FFA, and current Tennessee Congressman John Rose. Not even 4 years later, according to the engagement in the now-defunct local paper, the Eagleville Times, the two were married. Chelsea was 21. John was 45. Yes. This guy meets this young high school age girl, Chelsea Brooke Rose, and then becomes so enamored with her that he pays for her college. And then immediately after college, she gets out, they get married, she settles in, and has a kid. And essentially becomes a housewife. I don't think she has a job right now. I think she is a housewife. Now, we won't get into a woman's right in this. Clearly, she has every right to go ahead and live out her dream of being a mother, being a housewife. To me, the thought of somebody's college being paid for and then immediately coming out and marrying them and essentially negating all the work that was done in college, whatever her grades were, whatever her major was, and then to just seemingly get into indentured servitude, it seems very fishy to me. It seems eyebrow-raising. Not long after her triumph of the 2007 FFA convention, Doss received the Jerry and Betty Williams Rose Scholarship, named after Rose's parents, to attend Tennessee Tech after graduating. John has made everything possible that I've done in the FFA beyond high school. Through the scholarship he provides, I have not had to have a job. In college, I've been able to train, improve focus on FFA, focus on school. The scholarship made all the difference. She wouldn't turn 18 until August of her freshman year. At the same time, Rose was sitting on the board of Tennessee Tech. He was named chairman of the board of directors 1 month after the 2007 Tennessee FFA and served in that role throughout the entirety of Chelsea's time at the TIDU, including at the time of their 2011 marriage. He did not respond to questions. He's a lifelong volunteer and life member of the FFA. He served on the board for the Tennessee FFA 96 to 2014. There is no documentary evidence confirming that Rose, as vice chairman, met the FFA convention's contest winner and upcoming president in 2017. But in 2018 press release, Rose boasts about helping out top FFA members. He did eventually meet Chelsea within a short time frame. Marriage is positively quaint compared to other Republican stories. There's Donald Trump stuff, Jim Jordan, etc., etc. It still sits very uncomfortably within the party from the conservative grassroots and the media arms. At the heart of questions about Rose's marriage is the power that he wielded over the bride-to-be, both financial power and power over her future education. It may be less salacious, but it still doesn't look good, especially when Republicans are all about protecting the children. So let's see if we can find what these two look like here. John Ross and Chelsea. Yeah, this is the age difference between the two of them. And as of right now, I don't know that... Well, let's see. No, that's John... Well, John Ross, blah, 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 Chelsea. Okay, that's a little bit weird. It's not what I was looking for there. But, yeah, it seems like she immediately got out of college, married, had a child, and... that's it. And then I think she has disappeared off the grid. I don't know right now if she has a job, if she is doing anything with what she earned in college. Doesn't seem to be a good look. Now, also consider this. Current Tennessee law states you can get married as young as 17 if you have parental consent. Critics worry that House Bill 233, if passed, would pave the way for child marriage and child sex abuse. In 2022, they were thinking about lowering the age in which a person can get married. And then eventually it was shot down. Here, Tennessee marriage bill with no age limit sparks backlash. A Tennessee bill to exclude same-sex couples from a proposed legal marriage contract process sparked wide backlash after the sponsors initially failed to include a minimum age. Sponsors have submitted amendments to the issue, but for weeks the spotlight was on Tennessee and the fact that they were in the effort to try and stop same-sex couples getting married. There was no age limit. And it took it being exposed on a national scale for Tennessee to finally walk this back and fix this. So this is the current state of Tennessee politics in 22 and 23, that you have these two people being expelled from their Congress because they got on a bullhorn and showed support and encouragement to the protesters that were there to get something done, to protect the children, to have some way of making schools safe without schools becoming a lockdown gulag. They were expelled for that. Gloria was not. And they don't expel a member of their own party who has admitted to making children unsafe. People in his party said get out. The governor said get out. And he was allowed to rerun, and he was allowed to win. Yet this is something that's happening in Tennessee. Tennessee is a hellhole of American politics and absolutely needs to be fixed. It's the political napalm signing off, and happy Easter.